Okay, the first thing I want to explain is the pronunciation of the gun. In the books, they explain it's Mosin Nagant. You got to do it nasal at the end, which I'm going to screw up. Mosin Nagant. So we will use the average American Mosin Nagant. Okay, that works. Works in Brooklyn. It works here. Okay, not a problem. Okay, Mosin Nagant is the ugly duckling of collecting, and for a long time nobody wanted them. A few years ago, the Roselle police called me in and they go, "Can you identify these guns?" And they pulled out some Mosins and Jap rifles. I go, "Yeah." "Can we bring them?" "No, you don't have to bring them to me." Told them exactly what it was. I did not want to see them close, but I know what happened. Person had passed away, family had found the guns in the attic, didn't want the guns, gave the police to be destroyed so they could stay off the streets. We all know that any gangbanger, Bloods, Crips, MS-13, that uses a Mosin Nagant is, probably drives a Model T Ford and wants to sell you liquor too. Forget it, okay? The odds of this being used in a criminal enterprise are extremely limited, okay? Unless you want to call some kind of revolution in some country, all right? The gun's been around for a long time. 1891 is when it was designed. 1892 he started making them. And the cartridge that came with it is still in production. It's the longest serving military cartridge in world history. 7.62 by 54 Russian rim is still being made because it's still used in sniper rifles and machine guns in communist bloc countries. So it's going to be around for quite a while. The rifle itself, okay, was a replacement for the Berdan. Okay, it's a Russian Berdan, which, like other countries, they had single-shot black powder rifles, and they needed to go to a smokeless gun. So, in 1891, the Mosin was created, and Russia, being a large country, was going to need millions of them. So, they started arranging for production. Now, how did I end up with 28 Mosin Nagants? Okay. When I was 13 years old, I made out my dream list. It was 77 guns on it. About 20 of them were deactivated war trophies, which now you can't get. All right? And W.T. Grant, exit 135 Garden State Parkway in Clark. When I was a kid, go in there with my uncle who lived around the block, and they had these 55-gallon cardboard drums full of Mosin. Stacked up. They were more expensive than a BB gun, but cheaper than a 22. As a matter of fact, I've got some original ads, okay? Now let's see. Original US Krag long rifle, $16.95. Remington carbine, $11.95. Red Russian repeating rifles, $9.95. All right? And ye old hunter ads. For $79.95 you can get an M1 Grand. For $39.95 you can get a Springfield. For $29.95 you can get a US Army Model 1917. For $34.95 a Winchester 95. Jungle carbine was $24.95. And the Mosin was $9.95. Now, $9.95 to me was possibly Duel. And this is before we had NICS checks, sales tax, firearms ID. So in theory, if you were 18 years old, you could pull one out of the bucket, walk up to the checkout counter, give the lady $10, and walk home with a Mosin and a nickel. Okay? And because of that, it's always had that appearance of this has got to be cheap junk because look what they charge for these things. Besides, they're not that attractive. But I wanted one because it's history, okay? But I didn't want too many of them, okay? For those of you who don't know my family history, my father's parents died in Stalin's camp. My mother's parents died in Stalin's camps. My father's brother died in Stalin camps. One of my uncles had a brother die in Stalin camp. My mother and my sisters, my aunt, spent time in one, okay? So for me to collect Mosins, like a Jewish kid that collected 98Ks, okay? It's not going to endear you to the family, okay? So when I made my list, there were only two that I wanted. I wanted a 9130 and I wanted a sniper. Now, the problem with the sniper rifle was, of course, the only place you could have gotten it was Korea. I'm talking, early 1960s. Vietnam, we really weren't involved yet. And let's be realistic about it. Sniper rifles are hard to find. Luke the Gook is not going to be found on your wire in the morning hanging on to a Mosin Nagant sniper rifle. Even if he's regular or extra crispy thanks to the napalm, it's a distance weapon, okay? Running into one on the battlefield is going to be very, very hard. So while it was on my list, well, when I finally turned 18, got my firearms ID card, it was New Jersey, thanks to the racial problems of the mid-60s, decided to make it difficult to buy guns. I went looking for them. I couldn't find any in Jersey. They weren't for sale. Why? Because they were sitting in people's attics. Because the reality is, many people own a Mosin. They don't collect them. I don't collect them either. Really? They collect me. All right? They call out to me. Buy me. I'm cheap. I won't tell your wife. All right? So as the years go by, I kept accumulating. My very first one was when I was stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, sitting around the motor pool one day with other MPs, and a guy goes, "You know something about guns here? What's an SKS worth?" I go, "About $150. I'll sell you mine for $100. Okay, go over his house. Pulls out a Chinese carbine, bolt action. "That's not an SKS. That's what they told me it was. It's not an SKS. But he's got all the bring back papers, everything else. He needs the money, $50. I finally got my Mosin, okay? Gun shows in Texas. Moisins are there. All right, so I finally get one. My Mosin collections. I have a Chinese carbine. I have a Russian 9130. Then they kept calling me. I go to Woodbridge Auto Parts. They're hanging there on the wall. Gee, take me home, all matching numbers. Over the years, I accumulated a good number of them because they're collectible all of themselves. Now, how do we end up with all these Moisins here and not in Russia? Okay, the reason they're not in Russia, the old joke was, there are two things you can't get in Russia. Murine eye wash and guns, because both take the red out. All right? Now, okay. Now, where do they come from? The Directorate of Civilian Marksmanship in the 1920s was selling New England Westinghouse and Remington rifles cheap. They started selling them, the government paid $30 a piece for them. I'm going to get into this in September. But they didn't want them. So they started selling them for $5 plus $1.50 postage and handling. When that didn't work, they dropped the price down to $3. Now, if you find an all-matching, beautiful condition, New England Westinghouse or Remington, you're talking about $900 to $1,000. If you can even find them. That's the ones that never left the United States, which I'll get to in September. There are also Cadet Rifles. You're going to bring me your Cadet in September, right? Okay. Cadet Rifles were made by Remington and by Savage. They took rifles at the end of the war, chopped the barrel down to Springfield length, eliminating the front sight, cut the stock down, chopped off the last quarter-inch of the firing pin, and basically sold them as parade rifles. Okay, and then Bannerman bought a whole bunch of them and converted them to 30-06, but do not get any of those. They're dangerous. Okay. World War II. 91-98 Polish rifles. They are in Mosin, even though they're 8mm Mauser. I'll get into that in September. A few of them came back. Okay. Korea. GI bringbacks. Mostly carbines, but Tom brought me one that a Marine brought back from 1953 from Korea, a 9130. But most of the ones I've seen are carbines, Model 44s. All right, Spanish Civil War, very important. Okay, when Spain was involved in its civil war, Stalin was friendly toward the Republic, the left-leaning government. He used that as an excuse to unload his warehouses of all the old crap he had left over from the revolutionary days. And then he thought they might win. And he started giving them right from the factory, right from the arsenal, 9130s. And then in 1938, he realized they couldn't win, and he stopped. But in the meantime, he convinced their government that they ought to give him their gold reserve to be protected. So all the gold doubloons, all the stolen Aztec gold, anything that they had, got sent to Russia. When the Civil War was over and the nationalists won, they said, we'd like to have our gold reserve back. And the Russians go, what gold reserve? Oh no, that was the price you paid for all those guns we sent you. All right? So what are you going to do if you're in Spain? Sell the guns. And they unloaded a whole bunch of Mosins to us. So if you run into a pre-1938 Mosin, a lot of times, the 9130s, they are going to be, we call Spanish Civil War, I'll get into. They were brought into this country, and then somebody pointed out that under some law, you have to mark where they come from, where they were made. So they started stamping them made in URRS, because somebody in Spain didn't know his English. Okay. Then they realized their mistake, and they started stamping them USSR. So if you find a Mosin that's got either made in USSR or URRS, or if it's got MP8 and a flaming bomb in the stock, Spanish Civil War. Okay? And a good number of them came into the country in the 1950s. They were, well, when they realized that we were buying all these junk guns, somebody in Finland said, we got a lot of junk guns too. So they went and took a lot of their more beat up guns and sent them to the United States. But they were all going to be pre-1945, a lot of them going to be imperial. And they have two ways of marking them. The most common is SA, which stands for Sumoy Armia, which means Finnish Army. The other one is this real long word, which means Department of Defense. Among Mosin collectors, this is better than Viagra, finding one of these, okay? So, you know, if you run into a Apollo-Stellatos, whatever it is, they want them. It's like for 2 months. All right, Vietnam comes along. And a lot of Chinese Type 53s pop up, like the one I had acquired. Now, it's 1968, Gun Control Act, okay? You can't bring any more of these surplus guns in, okay? We don't want them anymore, you know, Kennedy got shot with a Carcano. All right. So the only ones that could be brought in were antiques, pre-1899. Now, the thing with a Mosin is the receivers don't have a serial number. The date is on the barrel, but there's also a date on the tang if you flip it over. You take the gun out of stock, there'll be a 2-digit. So if you get one that's marked 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, or 98, it's an antique. Regardless of what the rest of the gun has, it becomes an antique. And some people started importing them into the country, but they were really beat guns. I mean, they used to advertise them as fair to poor, but the rest of us were called junk. Okay? Well, Gun Owner Protect Act in 1986, you can now bring in these guns, but they had to be marked, this famous import mark. And that tells us when the gun entered the United States. All right? I call it Finnish closeout. The Finns realized by 1986 they weren't going to use Mosins for anything. And they sent us a lot of the really better ones compared to the ones they sent in the 1950s. You will see they're much better condition, and they're going to be import marked. China was perfectly glad to unload their guns. Okay? Then we had the Warsaw Pact going out of business sale. All right? All over Eastern Europe were warehouses of refurbished rifles that the Russians had given them for like defensive purposes in case the Americans invade. You can arm the militias, stuff like that. Well, they don't need these anymore. And that brought a flood of guns into the United States, the refurbished ones, and it made it very affordable, and you could get so many variations. You could easily collect 100 rifles and not have two alike, either by year of manufacture, the model, the arsenal, whatever. All right? Now, some of them marked them very slightly. They put a little mark under the barrel, like CAISTALBVT, which stood for Century Arms International, St. Albans, Vermont. Others, you know, Joe's Sporting Goods, Springfield, Georgia, zip code, and some of them we call billboards, just a massive amount of writing on the receiver. Also, Also, because the receivers were not numbered, ATF insisted they put a number on the receiver. If the gun had Cyrillic letters, they made you convert it to Latin letters. And some people hold their nose and go, I don't like that. You know, it's the price you pay for an inexpensive gun. Then we have the mystery guns, which I'm going to get into in the collection. No import marks, no Finnish, no Spanish marks. How they got here? Unknown. One rumor was called the Canadian Underground Railroad. That when we would not allow guns from the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact, Canada was allowing them. Canadians were buying them, sticking it in the trunk of their car, driving down to the Ohio gun show and unloading them. Whether that's a gun show, myth, story, whatever, don't know. All right? And then I put Trump error, question mark. What will happen now? A lot of the guns that came out of China were stopped because Clinton said, you're selling missiles to Iran or somebody. So no military supplies, no ammunition, no nothing from your country. That's an executive order. So Trump can sign a new executive order and allow it. He's got to convince the Chinese you'll make more money selling Mosins to America than missiles to Iranians. Okay, whatever. Russia. Are there any more locked up in warehouses somewhere in Siberia? Gulag number 5. Everybody forgot all about it. People still working there. I don't know. All right. So there is questions. We might see another flood of these rifles, and what are you going to do with them, right? Well, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Okay. The book to get your hands on is this guy, Terrence Lappin. Book runs like 20. This is the 6th edition. I used to have the 2nd edition. I gave it away. I bought the 3rd edition, then I waited too long, and then I bought the 6th edition. He's always finding new stuff, and he's putting it together. It's a nice, handy book. It's put out by North Cape Publications. If you're going to collect Mosins or want to know more about them, fantastic. Get the book. All right? Websites. www.mosinnagant.net. It's out of Estonia. And the guy who runs it, or ran it, we don't even know he's still alive, because he hasn't done anything since 2009 when he said, I'll be back, and he hasn't returned. He was the chief curator of a military museum in Estonia. And he specialized in Finnish, Soviet, and Russian Mosins. A lot of detail, all the markings, everything else. There's another site called 762.54art.net/MosinIDII. They also help you if you want to find out anything about it. There's a forum, Russian Mosin.forum.com, and guys are constantly finding new stuff and sharing it with each other. Mosins is treasure hunting. It really is. We don't know exactly what's out there, and I'm going to explain some of the ones that I have. It's treasure hunting. You're going out there, you don't need much money, and you never know what you're going to find. If you really want to specialize, scwmosin.com, Spanish Civil War. Just the Mosins in the Spanish Civil War. There's a site there for people who collect them. All right? Now, I want to go through these in chronological order, not how they got here to the United States, okay? And the differences. The first one I'm going to show you is a Finnish infantry rifle. Now, when Finland broke away from Russia during the revolution, they had access to the Helsinki Armory, which was full of rifles. All right? The new Bolshevik government wanted to bring them back into control, so there was a civil war in Finland between the different forces. When the war was over, Finland was an independent nation, and they decided that the Mosin would be their infantry rifle. And what they started to do was to start modifying them. The way you spot them is they're sling swivels. They put in sling swivels rather than dog collars. That's the first thing. The other thing is they mark the sights. The sights are marked in archangel, which is a method of casing that was used in Russia. The Finns cross out the archangels and they put metric equivalents on the other side of the sights. They liked this rifle a lot. They went out of their way to get their hands on as many as possible. In the 1920s, they went around all over Europe making deals. they would trade you whatever guns they had to get their hands on these. And other countries didn't want to have 5 or 6 different guns. So Poland got rid of its Moisins and got 98 Mausers. Austria-Hungary sent a whole bunch of Moisins to them. Germany had captured Moisins. A lot of them are going to end up in Finland. And the way you spot the Finnish guns is the SA mark and often the double-headed Imperial Eagle. They left them on. They had no heartburn with the Tsar's symbol. They left them on their guns. The Bolsheviks had a lot of heartburn. They made sure they were peened over, scratched out, or whatever. So if you run into the long rifle like this, usually you'll have the double-headed eagle on the receiver. All right. The fins also. Let's see if this one has it. Sometimes you'll see a little brass screw, because they found, and we found too at the range, when you start firing these guns, a lot of times the bands start walking forward along the cleaning rod. So by putting a little wood screw, you kept the bands in place. Cleaning rods. A real problem with them over the years that I've seen is they have very thin threads, and a lot of people used to slam them down, and they strip them, and then they fly off when you shoot, or they get loose, and it's just a design fault for the cleaning rods. Sometimes you'll find Moisins without cleaning rods for that reason. But this here is the Finnish infantry rifle, okay, with an original sling, and the sling swivels. That belongs to Jason, I believe, right, Jason?
Yep.
Okay. Above it is one that's also Finnish, but hasn't been converted yet. Didn't have the swivels. And this is a 1915 Peter the Great model. There's another one out in tables out there. I remember seeing it. Yours, okay, yeah. Sometimes the Peter the Great was defaced. Other times they left it alone. This one here has the double eagle on the receiver. But this is the, another example. It's the Model 91. All right. Things to look for, SA on it, the sights changed. Now, above it, here, is a Remington. Now, I'm going to spend a lot of time in September on Remingtons. Remington and New England. They were made, the British paid for the machinery, they were to be sent to Russia, and some were, when the Russian government was overthrown October 1917 by the Bolsheviks, and the Bolsheviks refused to pay for these rifles. Now, the U.S. thought that that's okay, they'll get overthrown, so they made a deal with the Russian government in exile. We would pay most of the cost to make these rifles. They would be marked U.S. property, which I'll explain how, and also Russian property. When things get straightened out in Russia, you can pay us for them and take the rifles, okay? The reality is that didn't happen, okay? And for like 250 Americans died for nothing. We sent soldiers to Archangel and Vladivostok to try to prop up the Kerensky government, all right? And those guys were fighting after November 11th. And Nikita Khrushchev used to always say, Russian soldiers have never been in America, but your soldiers were in Soviet Russia. And he was right. He knew his history, okay? Now, this is one of the ones that got over there. How can I tell? Double-headed eagle's been ground off. The Bolsheviks ground it right off. This particular gun, and Newt has one too, right? Newt was there. Here. You and I got them at the same time. They came out of Romania, was it?
That's what I was told.
Yeah, we were told they came out of Romania. They were used for a long time. Now, there's some that are floating around. In the 1950s, either Czechoslovakia, I think it is, took a whole bunch of 91 rifles and cut them down and made them into carbines for the police force, particularly the East German police force and the Border Patrol. So if you run into a carbine, and it's Remington, it's one of the ones they call a 9158. It's a Cold War piece. But Remingtons and New England Westinghouse, which I'll go into detail in September, they're the ones Americans want, because they're made in America. There's a beautiful picture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt firing one of these. Yes, because he was the Undersecretary of the Navy. The Olympia, the crew, got pictures of the crew standing there with their Moisins. The East Orange Armory, when I was stationed there with the 50th MP Company, we had pictures on the wall of things from New Jersey. And there's one scene of Seagirt, New Jersey. It's African-American soldiers, members of the State Guard. and they're all standing there at Seagirt with Mosin Nagants, dark walnut stocks. You know, I got the Smokey the Bear hats, the whole bit. They're standing there with those things. And man, do I regret not stealing that picture. All right. God knows where it ended up. All right. Now, models of the Mosin Nagant. Okay? There were 4 basic models in the Imperial era. Okay? There was the long rifle. This one here was called a Dragoon. Okay? The Dragoon was for mounted cavalry. It's about 2 inches shorter. Big deal. Okay? This is an Imperial Dragoon. It's marked with Finnish markings. So, it was, you know, they got it. It's got the double-headed eagle. And it's just a little shorter than the regular rifle. There's another version called the Cossack. That one's hard to find, even though they made 300,000 of them. The Cossack looks just like this, except it has KA3 on the barrel and KA3 on the sights, because a Cossack was not expected to shoot his rifle with the bayonet fixed. But an infantryman was supposed to. Now, the bayonet is basically your Civil War style, American Civil War, okay? You swing it over, you know, that's what they call the French style. That is another issue you're going to run into a lot of times. Is bayonets are a pain in the butt when it comes to interchange. They're not interchangeable. I'll get into one more story on that. But it took the same bayonet, and it's just a little shorter. That's all it is. Then there was a 1907 carbine, extremely rare. There's supposed to be 13 of them in Finland, and they're all in museums. Okay? So you're not going to run into it. Okay? All right? World War I ends. The Soviets win the Civil War in Russia. They decide they're going to stick with that rifle. Okay? And this is one of my examples of a mystery rifle. Okay? This one right here. I would love to find out how that got to the United States. This has no Finnish markings, no US markings, no import marks, nothing. Harrisburg Gun Show. I'm walking around and there's a bunch of Mosin Nagant Finnish rifles. Some in brand new condition. And this beat up gun is sitting with them. The other ones are all matching, excellent condition. This beat up one is mixed match. Okay, all parts have different numbers. So, why? I pick it up and I look at the receiver in 1922. This is a Soviet, not a Russian, a Soviet long rifle. They were only made for 2 or 3 years. 1920, 21, 22. How that got to the US, I'm going over it like crazy. There's got to be an import mark. It's got to have something on it. Nothing. They were only made for 2 or 3 years, and then the Soviets decided the official rifle of the Soviet Army will be the Dragoon. It will not be the long rifle. So, again, mystery rifle. How did it get here? All right. This is a Soviet Dragoon. Okay? The barrel bands are solid, convex, okay? Hexagon receiver. This one is Finnish. Bolt matches the receiver. Finns tended to do that. And basically, 1920s, a Dragoon, okay? Above it was my first Dragoon that I thought was a Dragoon. Excellent condition. It's a Finnish rifle, okay? What the Finns did is they stained the stock with potassium permanganate. They made a 2-piece stock, put it together. Now, all guns with 2-piece stocks are Finnish, but not all Finnish guns are 2-piece stocks. That's one you can remember. This one here was counterbored. So a lot of these guns got damaged from over and super cleaning everything else. They just counterboarded them about 1 inch straight down, took the rifling right out. They made this for their cavalry. But in the 1950s, they had made better guns, so these were some of the few really good condition Mosins that came into the country. It seems 17,000 of these were made, 2,000 were kept behind for bayonet practice, and 15,000 were sent to the United States. And like I said, when I bought this gun, I was so happy to find an all-matching Dragoon, not realizing what it actually was. Okay? Alright, 1930 starts rolling along. And now I'm going crazy because I'm missing a bayonet. It's in the box or what? Alright. The Russians decided they would go to the metric system. Okay? So they're going to create what's called the 9130. Alright? Now, to make a Mosin into a 9130, all you got to do is change the rear sight. That was the goal. Change the rear sight. Now, because we didn't know much about Mosins, we kept saying, okay, a 9130 has to have a round receiver, metric sights, globe front sight. No. All they did in the beginning was change the rear sight to metric. Made it nice and easy, nice and simple. This is rifleless receivers, 1929. The barrel was 1930, and it's an early, the first year. For this, they designed a new bayonet. Okay? The one that I had trouble finding. They decided to put a hood on the bayonet. Because theoretically, you were supposed to always keep the bayonet on anyway. Alright? So they designed a bayonet with a hood that would fit Dragoons, Cossacks, and the infantry rifle. Okay? And it gives you a front sight hood. These are rare. If you find one on a gun, it's worth buying the gun and selling the gun just to get a bayonet. Okay? As a matter of fact, there's a lot of guys in the forum will go, well, I saw this rifle, but the guy wanted 325, but it comes with the pushing bayonet. And the other guys are going, tell you what, give him 325, send me the bayonet, I'll send you 325. You know.
Where did you find that?
I'm trying to remember where it is.
Oh, come on.
No.
The gun Congress, come on. Huh? Bring me more Congress.
Yeah.
Russian world, stop it.
But I finally ended up with one. Okay? Now, theoretically, you could put it on 9130, because the early 9130s had just a regular front sight. But this is a Finnish capture. What the Finns did is, they added a step to the front sight. That's why the front sight's higher. Because the Finns don't fire their rifles with a bayonet attached. So by putting a higher front sight, they can just keep firing it with the regular sights. Okay? But if when this gun was originally made, it didn't have that little extra step on it. That's another indication it's a Finnish rifle, besides the fact that it's got SA on it. And in the beginning, they continued to make what are called the hex receivers. Now you're going to find distributors, sellers are going to tell you, you're going to pay more, it's got a hex receiver. They made them with hex receivers till about 1935, maybe even 1936. Alright? They simplified the bands. They made them all the Dragoon length. And they made metric sights. And that was the big changeover. Alright? Now my next gun is a mystery gun. This I remember because somebody was walking around with this at Allentown, and refurbished ones were going, I think, for $175 then. Refurbished, you know, over the years, okay. And he was walking around with this, and nobody would give him $175 for it because it's obviously not refurbished, it's not new or anything else. It's all matching. It was made in 1937. It's all there. So needless to say, I had to relieve him of it, because he told me, find me, take me home. Alright? But, hex receiver, now it's got the globe front sight. Now, the Russians liked the globe front sight so much, they put it on the SKS and the AK-47. They thought that was an improvement. The Finns didn't care for it. They were trained, you know, notch, front sight base, that's it, you don't need anything else. And they felt that this snagged them branches and snow and stuff like that. So they were not keen on a hooded front sight. All right, but this rifle, how did it get here, you know? Now the next one was a parts gun that I put together over the years because I had a lot of free time and leftover parts. And I want to show you something. Now it's going to fight me, right? Simple, isn't it? Not if you've messed with Mosins over the years. Glenn DeRuder gave me a call one day in Sarko. They were selling refurbished Mosin Nagants. They had like 25 of them in the store, lined up. Guy walks around, picks one up, goes to check it out, do all the paperwork. Glenn says, oh, by the way, you get a bayonet with it, and you know, the sling, and an ammo pouch. Where are the bayonets? They're in that bucket over there. Guy walks up, pulls one out of the bucket, walks back to the counter. Before Glenn can stop him, he does this. Yep, good. No, just like that. He leaves the store. Glenn grabs the bucket. He's walking down the line. He could not get another Mosin Nagant bayonet to slip on and slip off. So he tells me this story. So what do? Grab my Mosin Nagants, grab my bayonets. This is the only one that'll do it. And it's a Mixmaster. Okay? First time I did this with one of my Mosins was the last time I put it on. It is such a pain. It was not meant to come off, right? You put it on and I think the Russian regulation was the only time you took your bayonet off is when you were being transported in a canvas-covered truck or aboard a train. Outside of that, you were expected to keep the bayonet on at all times.
There's no Russian scabbards made.
No Russian scabbards, right. No such thing as a Russian scabbard.
Cited to be fired because the bayonet on.
Come September, I'll show you a German-Austrian scabbard. And I have some leather scabbards here that I'm not really sure where they're from.
The Finns made scabbards, the Austrians and the Germans made scabbards.
The Russians never did.
No.
Okay? This was the first Mosin that tempted me. This was at Woodbridge Auto Parts. I already had a Mosin. Like all the others, they're Mixmasters. I picked this one up at all matches. Uh-oh. This is a matching Mosin. Come home with me. I will tell your wife. Come home with me.
Stan, what matches on? The bolt, the barrel?
Yeah. Everything's numbered. Bolt, floor plate, and in most cases butt plate. Some butt plates are not numbered. But bolt, barrel, and floor plate.
Is it really rare to find match one?
On these, yeah. Now, if you get a Finnish gun, the Finns only worried about the bolt. The Finns would rework a gun, and if they had to, they restamp the new number. Boom, back in business. If you get a Finnish rifle, the bolt should match. The other parts, they didn't care. It's not critical. It's not important. Now, Arctic birch. All the pictures of Russian soldiers and all the guns in the First World War are dark stained. I always wondered about the Arctic birch, but I used to run into these guns all the time. There's a film. Propaganda film made by the Spanish government. It's called The Spanish Earth. And there's two versions. One, Ernest Hemingway narrates, the other one, Orson Welles. Same exact movie, just who's the narrator. It was shown in the White House because Eleanor Roosevelt and he left and had friends there. And there are scenes of people on the Republican side, and they're running around with light-colored Arctic birch 9131s. So, I mean 9130. So I know they had them. Now, this one was made in 1936. Very good chance this is Spanish Civil War. Because after he got rid of all his trash, Stalin sent, in 1936 and 1937, these rifles right out of the arsenal. They never got issued to Russian troops. They were put in boxes, put on boats, sent to Spain. So I suspect this is a Spanish Civil War. Even though there's no URRS or USSR or anything else. And in my year in Texas, I used to keep running into Arctic birch. But they were always mismatched. Just mismatched. This was the first one I ever ran into that everything matched. And that's why I had to have it. Okay? But that's Spanish, probably Spanish Civil War. Alright? Now, in 1938, the Soviets decided to go to a semi-automatic, but they also decided to still make some Mosins, but only in carbine form. Old Fred, if you remember this club, sold me this one. It's in excellent condition. It's a 1938 carbine made in 1941. The only indication of where it came from, SA on the side. I don't think the Finns even issued it. I think they captured it, marked it, stuck it in a warehouse. All matching. Okay? It's an all matching Type 38. A lot of 38 carbines that we have in this country are going to come from the Warsaw Pact closeout sale. They're going to be heavy with that red varnish, or they're going to have laminated stocks. This is the way they looked in World War II.
A lot of understand that interrupted. A lot of them too have the bayonet.
The cutout for the bayonet, they put the stock in 44. Now, this gun was issued, you know, in Russia, and then in 1943, they decided that you can't put a bayonet on this, because for some reason they put a little ring here with the sight. You can't put the Russian bayonet on it. Okay, so this is a non-bayonet gun. They then decided that people should have a bayonet on their carbine, and since they were running into problems already of soldiers losing their bayonets, they decided to make a carbine where it was attached. And that's your 44 carbine. And the stock has a special cutout so we can take it. And a lot of your refurbished 38 carbines have a 44 stock with the cutout. This one, I suspect, this one here is made in 1945. So it's not a Finnish capture, because Finns weren't capturing guns in 1945. All right, it's not Spanish Civil War because no guns arrived after 1938. So, and it's got some battle damage where a round went right through here. I suspect this is a Korean War vintage gun. Korean War bringbacks. I know for a fact that you can stick one of these in your duffel bag and only that much sticks out. Because in 1970, I was standing in Newark Airport in my Class A with a duffel bag, with a Chi-Com Type 53 muzzle sticking out of my duffel bag, and the Port Authority cop just walked right by. I said, phew. But there I was, with one of these sticking out of the duffel bag. Okay? I'll have that one in September. But again, this is a 1944. Now, during the war, World War II, the Russians put a clear lacquer on their rifles. Okay? Now, Tom's gun. I need Tom's gun. Oh. You put it away, huh?
You can have it.
Okay. Tom has a Mosin Nagant that came out of Korea. Okay? Korean War bringback. Yeah. Moisins are not an easy gun to bring back. Okay? Alright. Okay, it's missing the front sight, but what's more important is it has a little bit of the clear lacquer. Because all the refurbished guns have the heavy red lacquer. But this is Korean War bringback. It was demilitarized. They took some springs out. I think the trigger spring and something else, maybe the main spring. And I'm sure it can be restored. Okay, it wouldn't take much. And he's got the paperwork on it, or the stuff was found in the DMZ, hidden in the church. Okay. Again, the North Korean Army used Moisins, and there's probably lots of them still sitting in North Korea. They're very secretive, so we don't know what's there. Okay. Now, the next topic I want to get into. Okay, then came the refurbs. Okay. There's a bunch of them here. That's why I didn't bring any up here. I mean, I could take a look at them. But the refurb guns came out of the Ukraine, Poland, Romania, I think Bulgaria, maybe Albania. They're great condition. Now, there are three categories of the refurbs, basically. There is the ex-Dragoons. That's anyone that was made before 1930. It has the hex receiver, and it has metric sights. Then there is the 9130s made after 1930 with hex receivers. And then there's the round receiver, okay? Some people see more value than others in them, and they pay more money for them. And then, of course, the distributors want you to think they're worth more if it has a hex receiver or whatever. That's, you know, that's salesmanship. They've been refurbished. They're in excellent condition, and they're a bargain, okay? Now, you're going to say, well, you're showing me a $9.95. Right. So, back in 1960, you could buy an 03 Springfield for $40. You could buy a Mosin for $10. So, for the price of a Springfield, you could buy 4 Mosins. Guess what? Today, for the price of a Springfield, you can buy 4 Mosins. Okay? That hasn't really changed. All right? Now, the sniper rifles. Bunch of them out here. Oh, what a hot topic here. Sniper rifles, okay? Great book to read. Notes of a Sniper by Vasily Zaitsev. This is his book. Another nice book, but it's very expensive, is Soviet Women Snipers. Okay? And, of course, the thing that really did us in for collecting costs, Enemy at the Gate, where Hollywood designed the only left-handed Mosin Nagant Sniper rifle for all its posters, okay? Here's what happened. Glenda Reuter calls me up one day saying, you still want a 9130 Sniper? I'm going, yeah. We got some that came in today. How much are they? $325.
Ouch.
I go, put one aside for me. I'll hand select it for you, right? I rush over down there. Okay? It's even got a tag, still from Sarko. It says 9130 Sniper Original 325. Okay, and it's got the stock number from their book, okay? So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm going, yeah. Because at that time, you could buy a Mosin for $100. They were selling the scopes and the mounts for another $100. A gunsmith for $100 could probably put it on for you. So I was even thinking of doing that, building myself a sniper, okay? And I said, for $325, all the work's been done, everything else. All right? So I put $100 down. I come back next payday to pick it up. Except now they're $375 and $450 in the rack. What's the story goes, people want them. And I noticed some of them no longer said original sniper, just sniper. Okay? And I picked it up about 6 months later. He sees me and he goes, you want to hang on to your sniper? Yeah, why? The store will give you $500 for it. I go, why? Because we'll sell them for $750. Why? Remember Dirty Harry? Remember James Bond? Everybody had to have PPK. Everybody had to have, you know, Model 29. Thanks to this movie, everybody wants a 9130 Sniper. I said, well, where are they finding them all? He goes, well, they're not really finding them all. Yeah. And I go, what about mine? He goes, yours is a Century Arms. He says, those, you probably got the original snipers. When they went to the warehouse, they found some. And he said, well, then when they found out how badly people wanted them, they took all those boxes of mounts and scopes and started putting them together. Do I know for sure whether anybody's original? No. That's a real problem. Lappin basically warns you in his book about all the snipers coming in. Okay? Now, there's two of them here on the table. Alright? Mine, I put a laser scope thing into it. Its windage is perfect. From what I've been told from people who bought theirs and went to the range, they couldn't get on paper, is because they were cobbled together, nobody really cared. And there's a whole article, or there's a video you can get on the internet, shows you how to take yours apart and using shims, get it back on target. Because they were just cobbled together, boom, here it is. You can make your sniper more accurate, okay? They're in great demand because they were the most produced sniper rifle of World War II. And they, they're basically affordable. So people, got to have them. Here's the problem with it, just so you know. It's not a good design. To fire this sniper rifle, you cannot use a cheek weld. You got to use a chin weld. You can't do this. You got to do this. Or the equivalent. See the problem? You don't get that firm picture because you got to raise it up to get to the sight. You can't do a good cheek weld unless you're going to use the iron sights. If you're going to use the scope, you're going to have to be readjusted, and then of course every time you work the bolt, you're going to lose your weld. So you're going to have to go back to try to re-sight it every time. Barbara?
The bolt's noisy?
Yeah, bolt's noisy, and of course it requires a lot of action on your part, which means there's movement.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, what the Russians did is, of course, mass produce these and issue them in large numbers, so that's how they made up for it. Now, the famous sniper duel. Oh yes, the famous sniper duel in the movie. First appeared in 1966 in a book called Barbarossa. Then it appeared in a book called War of the Rats, which dealt with Stalingrad, and then Enemy at the Gate. He barely mentions it in his book about shooting Major Koenig from the sniper school. Major Koenig, there is no Major Koenig. There was no sniper school in Berlin. Snipers were sergeants. They didn't send lieutenants, captains, and majors to go sniping. Okay? They believed that he was told back in 1943 that he had shot this guy Koenig. He was a master sniper, blah, blah, blah. So he believed it. It's in his book. But there's no German records indicating that a sniper school existed in Berlin, that there was a Major Koenig or anything else. And the question is, why didn't the Russians really play it up back in 1943? It would have been a great propaganda victory. They hardly mention it. So the question there is, maybe the sniper duel was really a myth. It's a good story. I mean, let's face it, in the movie, it's the action scene, you know, who's going to get who, the master sniper or Vasily. All right? This book deals with female snipers, Soviet women snipers. One of them had like 200 kills. I think Vasily had 300 confirmed kills. The record is Simo Haitkaya, I think is his name. Anybody here remember how to say it? He's from Finland. He would not use a scope because he didn't like the Mosin raising your chin. And he put snow in his mouth so he wouldn't leave a vapor trail. And he was hardcore. And they sent Russian snipers to get him, and they did. Part of his jaw was blown away. And he survived the war, you know, but I think he had the record. And he used to use, I think, a Model 39 or a Model 29 Mosin. Open sights. He didn't like scopes. And we give an award at their winter shoot for the best sniper. Just so you know, for the Memorial Day shoot, I unfortunately had to raise the fee to 25 because we keep losing money. You guys eat a lot. I renamed one trophy. It was going to be a little round top. It's going to be Pickett's Charge. Why? Because I found a nicer looking trophy that shows Pickett's Charge. So. When I ordered a trophy, I decided I'm just going to change the name of the event because I want to use this picture on the trophy. But that will be, you know, in 2 weeks, Memorial Day shoot. Now, the other sniper rifle up here. So Glenn DeRuiter, being working at Sarko, could find good stuff that he got for himself. He picked up 2 sniper rifles. This one he sold to Andy. Now, for those of you who have been to our shoots, Andy keeps winning with this. This gun here, it gives sub-minute of angle. What it is, it's a Russian rifle that was captured by the Finns. The Finns reworked it. It got recaptured by the Russians, so the Finnish markings have been scrubbed out. But as anybody knows, you get a Finnish rifle, you got the match version. The Russian is the service version. The Finns work on the trigger, they relieve wood, they put in shims, they upgrade, they're marksmanship people. They upgrade their rifles. Given a choice, go for a Finnish rifle over a Russian rifle. And this particular sniper rifle, I know because we've seen him do it. Andy can hit a dime at 100 yards.
Oh.
He gets the X-ring, blows out the center of it with this rifle. For all of you, what's your wife's name? Where's Andy? Okay. Remember his wife's name. Some days may be available.
Wow, that's
Stan, those snipers were built on round receivers, right?
Huh?
They were primarily built.
Yeah, primarily built on round receivers. The only one I ever saw in a hex receiver was the one Glenda Reuter had that had the big scope, the PU scope, which the Russians found in the Spanish Civil War tended to fog up. And they developed a shorter, cheaper scope, okay, what they call the PU scope, which most of us have on our rifles. Okay? Now, on this particular rifle, anybody else spot the designation that it was once, the Finns once had it? The 9130 front sight. It doesn't have the globe, it has the elevated front sight. And Andy, you said you saw the Finnish markings have been defaced, right?
You see the front, right on it, if you look right on the top there, on the Russian marking part, it goes towards the cypress, you will see it door.
But this one was definitely Finn Sniper. Now, the one that I have, that isn't an original, some of the things that indicate it might be is the receiver is very, very smooth. Doesn't have the rough machining marks of a gun made in 1942-43. Now, there are guns they refer to as ex-snipers. When a sniper rifle was no longer meeting the accuracy requirements, they would take off the scope and mount, fill the holes, put a regular stock on it, issue it out. And every now and then people find those, and then they go and have a mount put back into the, unscrew the holes and put a, so they're referred to as ex-sniper. There's sniper, ex-sniper, and fake. Okay? So, for those of you who are collectors, you never know, some of the dumbest fakes are people who take a import marked rifle, and the import marking is right in here, and then they put the mount right on top of the markings. Okay? So if you unscrew the mount and you find the importer stuff in there, definitely fake. Okay? Now this one here, like I said, I was told it was original. The scope mount is marked to the rifle, and the scope is marked to the mount too. So if somebody made this into a fake, they put some effort into it. That's all I can say.
Stan?
Yeah.
Is the marking electro-penciled?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's another argument, whether they're electro-pencil or whether they're stamped. Now, I understand John Roundtree's not here. Paul Murphy found a Hungarian sniper at Allentown last week. Very rare. I was hoping he'd bring it here today, but he's got a Hungarian sniper. The North Koreans kept using Mosins until a few years ago. They liked them and they continued. If we ever have better relations with them, maybe we'll find more Mosins coming out of the woodwork up there. Yeah, not happening. Yeah. Yeah. But, like I said, there's any questions on Mosins? There's a lot. Yeah. Purpose made what? The Finns? Okay, the Finns never made receivers. The Finns never made receivers. They had enough parts that they had barrels made for them in Switzerland and Belgium. But when it came to receivers, they never had to make them. They had one. They used to buy junk guns in other countries. Now, years ago, Sarko sold me, I needed a stock. And Glenn told me, he says, I'm not allowed to sell you just a stock. He says, you got to buy a complete Mosin kit for like $150. It has all the parts. Now, I had a barrel receiver for a Westinghouse. So he goes out in the back and finds me a Westinghouse stock, and he brings me all these Mosin parts, including a barrel receiver from 1921, okay? Barrel was pitted. So, big deal. That got thrown in the corner. I used the parts. Over the years, I found parts. Next thing you know, I'm rebuilding this piece of crap gun, right? I went up to Cat Swamp Road, just out of curiosity, because I tried scrubbing the barrel clean. As New puts it, you can't put back what's gone. Okay? I put a round into it in a chopped up stock that I found, put it in a tire, real long lanyard. I go back and pull it. The gun goes off, I run up with a rubber mallet, hit the bolt handle up and back, the case flies out, the gun held. The gun held. The barrel was, then of course I started cleaning it again. I went through 3 tornado brushes, stainless steel. It is a strong action. It can take a lot of abuse, which you're going to find out in September when I talk about Joe's Austrian. Yeah. I have a Mosin Nagant that takes 8mm bullets and they come out 7.62.
Wow, it's like the Play-Doh machine as a kid.
Yeah.
Like the Play-Doh would squeeze it
Yeah.
out of the hole.
It was made that way. All right? Any other questions? If not,
Mitchell's Mausers, just the commercial put
I haven't had a
together,
chance.
whatever.
Yeah, Mitchell's now. I really wish he was here. Bill Castro, one of the guys comes to our. Greg. He went to a pawn shop. And I tell you, Mosin's is treasure hunting. You never know what you're going to find. He went into a shop where they had refurbished Mosin's, you know, $100 each. He finds one, puts a deposit on it, picks it up. He had a Kremlin honor guard Mosin. Wow. But he knew what he was looking for.
He can't take a Russian, he does Russian reenactment.
He does Russian reenactment. He ended up owning a Kremlin honor guard Mosin that was mixed in with all the others. Just, you know, if you get this book and you want to go treasure hunting, I mean, myself, when I go to a gun show, I walk by all the refurbs. They just don't interest me. Anything that's not a refurb, and they're getting sneaky, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to warn you. I have seen people take those guns and put scope mounts on and claim they came out of Vietnam or North Korea. Because when you look at a refurb, you go, well, it might be a fake. You get a gun that's worn and the scope and everything else, you go, oh, that's probably original. Now, when I was a young collector in this club, all the guys would get tossed on fake Dragoons, fake Colt 18, 51 Navy, and I said, oh God, I'm glad I don't collect that shit. World War II, no one's ever going to fake that.
When the Finns beat the Russians in the Olympics in 36, shooting, were they shooting those same rifles?
I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. With all I know is the Finns, you know, they put up a good fight in the Winter War. They put up a good fight in the Continuation War. They did not want to get any new territory. When they pushed the Russians out, they pushed them out to their border and they stopped. They did not want to take any Russian territory. So the Russians wanted their territory and eventually got it.